score, so more spiritual, had a pre-treatment lower alteration in cortisol rhythm and a higher lymphocyte number. They achieved tumor regression. Okay, so these patients with higher spirituality score had a much better response. They achieved regression. So they didn't know, these patients didn't know what's going to happen. They just answered the questionnaire. But at the end, those were the ones that achieved regression. Spirituality score prior to treatment was associated with better response to chemotherapy. And see, here is score prior to treatment. They were already doing this. It's not a person that say, okay, I'm sick, now I'm going to go to the church, I'm going to become spiritual. Okay? So it's not that, because that also will help. But they were assessing prior to show that that attitude, that way of life was already doing some benefits. And we're going to talk a little bit now about faith and healing practices, because we were talking about, how the disease can be installed, and now we're going to talk about how we can deter the disease or work against it. Dr. Jeff Levin is going to be one of our speakers in the upcoming Spiritist Medical Congress. He is from the Baylor University, a very well-known university. He's one of the pioneers in research on religion, spirituality, and health. He has several articles, and we're going to have some of them published in our website, on faith as a key factor in the healing process, okay? Showing that faith is so important, is the faith that actually make us heal, help us in healing. Okay? Now, I think it's important to tell you a little bit between about the difference between healing and cure, because we tend to think about healing being a synonymous of cure. But it's not. If you look at the books of integrative medicine, especially the books of integrative medicine, they will bring the definition right at the beginning of the book, what healing means, what cure means. And it's very interesting, because a cure is a cure of a disease, is a physical cure, right? You recover from that. Healing is a process in which the disease itself, physical disease, may not be cured, but the patient is healed. His mental health is stable, is better. Okay? So we go from a patient who is completely out of line, who is in agony because of that disease, and we get the patient in a well-being, mental well-being. Okay? That means healing, and it has to do a lot with spiritual status, actually. Okay? The mind status, the spiritual status. So in the book, one of the books of integrative medicine, they say something that I like to quote. They say, healing is a very important process, because you may not cure the disease, but you heal it. And if you cure but you don't heal the patient, the disease may come again and even worse. So we want to be cured, but it's more important to be healed, which then involves the process of treating us as a whole, mentally, spiritually, and physically. Okay? So Dr. Jeff Levin writes a book from the standpoint of faith. How important is faith? And just to, not that this is important, but Dr. Levin is Jewish. And he is so happy to be talking in our meeting, because we see that all this integrates. It's not the stamp of religion that makes things different. Everything is the same. It's just that some people look at the different perspective, but we see a common ground in all of this. Can spiritual practice influence genes? We saw through the work that we were showing here that spiritual practices like meditation, like prayer, spiritual practices can decrease the hormone level in the blood, can change the number of cells in the blood. But can it change genes, behavior of genes? That's a lot deeper. Even, if you do not know much of the biology system, genes are basically, where everything develops. From the genes, we develop all the characteristics of the body. And through the changes in the genes' behavior, we can change our physical features. So it was very interesting when I saw this article that was published in 2005. They used practitioners of Chinese spiritual practice called Jihong. I don't know if anybody have heard about it. And this is practiced by Chinese mainly. And they used 6 Asian practitioners and 6 controls. And they evaluated the genes by a methodology that is extremely expensive called microarray. It's very expensive, it's very specific. And again, they found that the results, when they look at the results, this practice enhanced immunity. It shows a better response against inflammation. It shows phagocytosis function enhanced. If you remember those cells that I said eat up the bacteria, the macrophages, those are the ones that we call, they have a phagocyte function. So that ability of those cells was enhanced just by doing this practice. And there are genes that are responsible for these functions. When they compared the genes for the people who do not practice and the people who practice, they found everything in the benefit of a better health. So enhanced immune system. Now, immune system was responding better. There are several genes of the immune system. And if you are in the field of science and would like to see more this in detail, I have the reference here, so you can read more which genes were changed to which direction and so forth, so on. This group, it's interesting because Dr. Dusek says that when he read this paper, which was published in 2005, he didn't really believe that. He thought, they did only 6 patients. 6 patients is nothing. It could be a trend. Plus, they were all Chinese. So, it could be something that is particular to their culture or to the race, whatever. So he decided to do, because he came from the standpoint of view that he didn't believe that. So he wanted to retry. And he used practitioners of relaxation response, yoga, meditation, a little bit more diverse. And he used 19 against 20 controls, comparison before and after 8 weeks of practice. So what he did, he took people who didn't know how to practice, for example, meditation. Never did it, didn't even know what it is. And they said, okay, now I'm going to teach you how to do this. So he got people who knew, who did that, and introduced to this new group. But before they were training in that, he took the blood, and okay, this goes to analyze the genes. Then they were for 8 weeks practicing